Alright, and then one more video while I'm at it, also just improvise, see how it goes. It's about a book called The Most Human Human, written by Brian Christian, and it's an interesting book. I thought it kind of fun because he is talking about something that's called the Turing test, and Turing was a scientist who did a lot of research for the government on codes cracking, I think it was. And he made the mistake once of this little personal story about Turing first. That he made a mistake once to when his home was burgled, to call the police, thinking that the police was some kind of service provider protecting his property, which is nonsense, of course, because they steal their property out of your salary. And they came and went through his stuff and discovered that he was homosexual. And at that time, and I don't know by head when we were talking, but I think it was maybe the 50s or something, homosexuality was still a crime in Britain, and he was convicted, and he was convicted to undergo some kind of hormonal treatment. They gave him he was forced to take some hormones which made him grow breasts and eventually kill himself. So yeah, there's your government for you. Yeah, it's a lot of sad stuff in that, yeah. But Turing is mostly famous for what's called the Turing test, and the Turing test is a test in which you chat on a keyboard with someone or something else on the other side for 5 minutes. You call this, you have 3 parties in there. You have a bot, which is a computer program that has to do the chatting, chat bot. You have a judge who has to determine whether he is talking to a bot or a human. And you have a human, which is called a confederate always, and he has to play the human and convince the judge that he is the human and not a computer. Turing made this and made a prediction that one day that the computer could impersonate a human being, long before that was possible. But yeah, recently it has become quite possible, and so every year there is a contest called the Loebner contest, and it's a guy who donates a lot of money to the best bot, and he has some prize money. And yeah, the author of this book goes to this contest, and in parallel there is also a contest for the person that looks most human, and is judged, the human that is also judged most human, because also humans get misjudged as computers. And one case that some judge says, well, no one knows that much about Shakespeare, that is a bot, and it was a human. And the author goes there to win the contest, the most human, which he does in the end. So he makes a real study of it, how to come across as a human and to not be mistaken for a bot, and how he could give clues to the judges that he is indeed a human. And yeah, he made some it's a fun contest. It's also fun if you read these conversations, how they go. But he made an interesting case. He said that if you look at other computer problems, then you can say for the first thing that was solved maybe is checkers, which is it's a finished game basically. already the World Championships. Exactly the same games were replayed. It's just a done deal for a computer. And chess, when Deep Blue of IBM was winning from Kasparov, you could still argue that Kasparov made a bit of a dumb move by trying a very strange opening d3 to outwit the computer, and he could have better taken a normal opening. But I think by now, IBM dismantled the whole project. But I think by now we're also already a decade further on. You can say that chess is the world champion is beatable by a computer easily. And Bobby Fischer, the extravagant chess champion, who was vilified and a bit of a weird character, but also made some ballpark remarks about American foreign policy, and who lived in exile in Japan and Iceland, I think. He said, chess has to be changed to get away from this computer problem, and for example have a sort of randomized beginning, so the computer cannot store all the openings, and it's more skill than working through the database. But even that will end up with a computer win. And the author claims that also for this conversation, the Turing test, it's not far away the point that in a 5-minute chat, a human cannot determine with more than random chance whether he is dealing with another human or with a computer. And he says that also rules have to be changed for this conversation. For example, that you cannot discuss certain subjects, or you have to come up with some rules to make the conversation harder for computers. For example, there was one case in which a chatbot was always programmed to make a conversation about Bill Clinton and some recent affair, and always bent the conversation back to that subject in which he had a conversation line ready. So it looked like a very good conversation, and it was also judged by the judge as a human. But when you saw all the conversations, you noticed that they were all about Clinton. So that was a nice trick to be done. But this Turing test, I think, will soon prove to be unbeatable, and this brings about we always have this I always have a determinist free will angle in that. It brings an interesting empirical evidence for people who claim free will, because they must be able to detect that they are dealing with a human and not with a computer, right? They must type and immediately see, like, okay, I'm dealing with a human, or I'm dealing with a free will or a non-free will thing. There must be some empirical way to test this. There must be some questions you can ask, or some remarks you can make that makes you tell the difference between a dead deterministic thing and this live thing with free will in it, right? So I think we have an empirical test here, and if someone who believes in free will cannot determine the difference between something with free will and without free will, then I think he lost his case. I think that and there's no way around it, right? So I thought that was overall interesting book. Nicely written. Repeat it again. From Brian Christian, The Most Human, and a recommendation from me. Thank you.